sun, source of heat, light, and power, sends its rays in all directions. It gilds the crescent of the moon. It lights directly, however, only that which faces towards it. While the moon is round, like a ball, we sometimes forget this fact because the dark side is not often illuminated. I'm holding a white card to throw second-hand light from the sun back onto the ball. Or onto a sculptured head. It is only this reflected light that makes the shadow side visible. The shadow, moreover, will be modified by the color of the reflecting surface. My own head, or any person or thing in sunlight, is illumined on the shadow side by reflected light. This house happens to be in Florida. As I work, I'll try to anticipate your questions about lighting. Here is the finished picture from a little farther away. I have already made a pencil drawing to guide me in putting in the colors. Not just any colors, but mixtures carefully compounded from the pigment primaries. I'm using chiefly cobalt blue, alizarin crimson, and cadmium yellow medium. And I'm mixing them, as you see, right on the paper, rather than in the palette. Four elements of lighting apply equally well to pictures of things in sunlight, whether you use oils, gouache, pastel, watercolor, or any other medium. For me, watercolor happens to have the strongest appeal. Before determining the colors for shadows, we should point out the four elements of lighting on this geometric shape, where they are presented in clear, exaggerated form. On the top surface is what we'll call A lighting, the direct light of the sun. This, the only face on which the sun shines, is nearly always the lightest thing in the picture. As it rotates into shadow, it passes into B lighting, or sky shadow. This is illuminated by second-hand light coming from above, blue in our case. On the underside is C, the reflected light. It also is a second-hand light controlled by the sunlit card that faces it. When this area is shaded, notice that it doesn't throw back light. My white-gloved hands show the A, B, and C lighting. Here is a fourth, the darkness of a hole or crack in my clasped hands. The lack of light in any cavity may be called D lighting. Other holes in pale areas might be, for instance, in landscape, dark recesses in foliage. In people, they could be nostrils or the pupil of the eye. In houses, windows and doors have D lighting, although some of these do mirror color from the trees or sky. The edges of the tiled roof are put in with a bright red, cadmium light, to contrast with the lighter shadow colors. Since the side of the chimney gets less light from the sky, it is less blue and darker than the front. And because the shadows under the porch receive additional reflected light from the porch floor, they are less blue and darker than those on the end of the house. Bluer here from the sky to our left, B lighting. Yellow here from the porch floor, C lighting. Like the house, the column has direct sunlight on the right and sky reflected in the middle. The warm light comes from the sunlit wall on the left. An exaggeration helps to clarify a point. Let me take you to New Hampshire and show you white paint that looks orange. And now the reason for this warm sea light. If there is any exaggeration to be done, I prefer to cheat in favor of sunlight. So with the sky, I intend to paint it a little darker than it looks. This is for two reasons. One, to bring out the sunlight, and two, to allow for the fading of colors in the first few minutes of drying. After that, my watercolor is permanent. This is yellow with the slightest touch of green. The sunlight on the grass will be more yellow than green. We could trust our eyes to tell us what they actually see if it were not that the mind likes to instruct the eye as to what it should see. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the house is white. These are traditions, not the result of observation. Since grass is soft and lush, I'll put in the shadows while the paint is still wet and get soft edges. The shadow color, though facing the sky, B lighting, will not be too blue, as there are a lot of dark holes, D lighting, in its deep pile. This is not true of the smoother cement. The round sunlit spots on grass and cement come from chinks in the foliage. Notice the varied shapes of these holes cut in a card. When I carry it back, however, away from its shadow, the light spots all appear circular. And now, a close-up of the card and its shadow. As I moved away, the round sun intruded its shape more and more, until when I was at some distance, the light spots of odd shapes all became round. A circle, in perspective, changes to an ellipse. These elliptical sunspots in shadow describe the surfaces on which they fall. After taking so much trouble to demonstrate the light spots in tree shadows, we should show the trees that cast them. There is no standard color for shadows. Each must be judged individually. While the artist may wish to use his privilege of falsifying or changing shadow colors in the interests of design or harmony, his subject will have these four elements of lighting. A, the direct light of the sun. B, shadow influenced by sky. C, shadow with reflected light. And D, shadow with very dim light. The sun illuminates everything in its path. Even things in shadow are visible only because the sun's light is strong enough to bounce back onto them from neighboring surfaces. The color, strength, and sources of this second-hand lighting should be understood when painting shadows.